What's up, everybody? It's your boy Royster here with a new installment of the Royster's Chronicles of Faith series, and I'm on location, as you can see. As well, generally I'm outside when I've been doing these, but I traveled down to my hometown, Springfield, Ohio, which I live about 50 minutes away from. But it's a beautiful day. I wanted to get a new video in for this segment, and this segment I want to talk about specifically my sort of like basketball ministry of sorts that I was doing when I first came back out of ministry school. So I figured I would just go ahead and shoot the film on the courts where a lot of that took place at, or mainly took place at. So let's go ahead and just kind of show you the courts real quick. Here I am entering in the courts at Lagunda. So it was basically one full court. Let's see there, with one random hoop over here that you would practice on, or maybe get some 21 on while you was waiting to get a game in. And of course, got the classic thick rims going on. And then you just kind of had the sideline here along this fence line where you waited to get next. And right here was the one lonely park bench inside the court. And there you go. All right, well, nothing has changed, or not much has changed about these courts. It doesn't look like much has been done to update anything around here since the last time I was here, which was a long time ago. I can't even remember the last time I came over here just to shoot around, let alone play in some games. But yeah, so before I get ahead of myself, let's give a little background. Of course, growing up, I loved playing basketball. I had a school that was across the street from where I lived, and they had a court, and so I went out there with some regularity and played. And you would have thought with some of the regularity I might have ended up being a little bit better. Not that I was a scrub, mind you, but but I tended to hold my own with the people I played with growing up, and so big loved playing basketball. So to fast forward, through my youth and that, just establishing, hey, I like to play basketball. I used to play basketball a lot. Was when I went to ministry school, one of the first things, I think it was like day one, they had some outdoor courts, and of course, a bunch of people were playing, and that's where I ended up meeting and making my best friend from that time period, or just instantly from the rip, was playing hoop there. And and that was a big thing. That was probably one of my favorite, non-spiritual recreations when I was in ministry school, was playing basketball. Now, they also had a court, indoor gymnasium, which we were able to play and things like that. So that, and there was some good, solid competition there, I might say, And I would say probably during that time frame was, I was probably at the peak of my basketball skills, where it all now I pride myself on being defensive guy, that guy, but I love defense. I loved, being the hustle guy, grabbing some boards and things like that. But I also had a decent offensive game, and, growing up it would come and go. But that was probably the peak of where, I had the most complete game. I was probably in some of the best shape in my life. And so, but yeah, so, you know, passion about the basketball passion was able to carry over there. And even obviously that with the help of, you know, my best friend there, we obviously were, you know, hoop fanatics, right? And like, it was fun too, even like kind of following the NBA, like at the school where you had no access to TV or anything like that, but we would get in there and we would look at in the newspaper and look at the box scores, and so that was pretty cool and to do. I remember that. So I kind of remember that fondly, actually following basketball mainly through box scores rather than through TV and things like that. So, so anyways, I want to share a story that kind of will lead into what I'm want to talk about. So now so in my third year, and as I mentioned in the other video, you know, I did an internship there. Originally I was in Ireland, and then I was brought back to help start like an inner city ministry. Now it was kind of part of it was about being sort of like an after school program kind of like thing, but also it was like where you would kind of go out and evangelize, and that was where a lot of my passion was. And I remember so when I got there, you know, and again, this is kind of, and when I share these things, please know, like, I'm not like trying to share anything out of like a bitter, resentful spirit and things like that. I'm just kind of sharing my truth, my experience, so to speak, and some things that I had to deal with or I went through that proved to be frustrating, and which then will also kind of set up sort of the story that I'm trying to tell. So when we were getting there and getting sorted into this ministry, I found that so one of the things we did when we went out, and you know, one of the things as far as evangelism would go, is you go out, you maybe get a partner and you'd walk out and try to meet people, and then there, from the base where we were located at, several blocks down, there was a basketball court, right? And so I just thought, like, let me just take a passion of mine and like playing basketball, and maybe that would be a good icebreaker to go out and to connect and meet with people, right? And so I suggested to the leadership team there that, hey, like when we go out, maybe some of us can just go to the hoop court. Now, I wasn't like trying to make an excuse so I could go out and just go play basketball, but like legitimately, you know, hey, let's go build some relationships with people in the community, and there will probably be people actively here playing basketball. And so, you know, I mentioned that and brought that up to the leadership team. So, you know, and I thought, hey, you know, who else would be better to be a part of that team than me, right? And so, to my disappointment and frustration, mind you, they took my idea, or, you know, they thought it was a good idea, but they decided to take other people to go be a part of that ministry, which kind of had me, you know, sort of dumbfounded, right? Because it was like, it just seemed logically like, hey, like, not only was I the person that came up with the idea, but like, you know, like I already have like this sort of pedigree built in that would help make me more where I could relate with the people a little bit better, and you know, and for whatever reason, and then they kind of like chose people who, not that they weren't good at sort of evangelizing or sharing, but I don't know that was like kind of like their bread and butter or something that would be a good instant, you know. And then the other function of that ministry was more of a, again, focusing on like, you know, sort of like not like a youth ministry, like an older ministry, like older youth, but kind of like after school, like elementary to maybe middle school age. And kids ministries just was never my thing, or nothing I felt like I was called to, and I didn't really, you know, gravitate. So I thought, here I am doing this, which I have like not a lot of per se. I have passion to reach out to various people, but as far as strengths and things like that, and then here, I thought a good opportunity for me as far as placement, and I shared this because this was sort of like some of the ongoing frustration, especially for me in this like third year internship, because within that dynamic of that school, and I believe in authority, and I believe in honoring your authority and doing what is asked of you, but I felt like you couldn't at any point, like, not question it, but even just ask questions like, hey, why was I not chosen? Like, I didn't feel like there was that freedom. There was sort of like, like a suppression there, like, where I felt like I couldn't ask like, hey, I came up with the idea, why didn't, and to just ask, I felt like it would have been perceived as rebellion, so to speak. So that did, and then that stints to some things that were going over when I was in Ireland. Again, I'm sort of like a fall in line kind of guy, but even over there where you would just to ask questions about things, and it was just kind of like, just to maybe have a clear understanding, and not just always just so, or just to give suggestion, right? But I get, there always seemed like that there was either this conflict with the leadership or the authority, whether they, I don't know, like, and again, some of these people were younger, in their stints as leadership, and didn't have, I don't know, maybe they had their pride, right? Or maybe they took on that whole authoritative, like, kind of like structure that had been built in, ingrained, and it was in them. So I don't know. So again, I share all that because that was a legit experience of mine, and it was frustrating, right? And I get that part of the thing is like some of the principles that are in Scripture, that God does use people who who don't fit a certain narrative, right? Or this person seemed like they would be best for the job, but other people were used. I get that. But it felt like that they purposely put you in those situations and would say, hey, this is God's will, so to speak. And again, God's will thing is a very point of contention for me, as far as I believe in the will of God, and that God has a will for everybody, right? And like sort of like this universal will that everybody fits in. And I do believe that there are specific things and callings that He has for specific people in that, but it can become very damaging, that some of those mindsets that come with it. And I know it paralyzed me, and I'll probably do a whole different video focusing on that, or talking about that. But anyways, so you just kind of accept some of these things as that's the truth, right? Okay, well, God probably didn't want me to do this. He wants me to grow in this, or challenge me in this area, and things like that. But then again, you go somewhere else, and another like ministry or another school, they will have a whole different theology or outlook or a set of principles that would say, hey, no, you were the guy that was supposed to go, or this and this and that, so basically, I say all that to say, when I got back to when I graduated, when I got back to Springfield, my hometown, and as I mentioned in the previous video, talking about like getting involved in ministry and having a passion to share Jesus with people and reach out and trying to figure out what that looked like, right? As far as, you got your standard, whether you're speaking at a church, evangelizing, so to speak, if you're going door to door and going out and different things like that. And there was always that sort of that idea, the sort of the community outreach and things like that. But and as again, sharing with you, like I came in, I was on fire, I wanted to hit the ground running. The church was kind of in a transition point. So like I went out and tried to figure out what can I do? And so this particular court, now I like grew up on the south end of town, and the court I used to play at was gone. The school was gone. The court was gone. But this was just down the hill from my church that I was attending. And so I thought, hey, one day I was like, now I don't have those restraints of someone telling me I can and can't do a certain ministry, so to speak. And so I was like, let me go and sort of do a basketball ministry of sort, and it wasn't like anything grand. It was just me wanting to go meet people, just where they were at, connect with people, build relationships, build friendships, and then hopefully at some point maybe opportunities would come for me to share, to speak, or and then if I lived in a way that was different and unique, trying to shine the light in the life of Christ, hopefully maybe there would be some attraction, not to me but to Christ, right? And then that would open up doors for me again to share and to witness and to talk about Jesus. So now the thing is, knowing when people played, that was like a problem, right? Because it wasn't like just people were doing random pickup games. You kind of had to know, right? You had to know when people played. So I happened to find out, coming home or leaving from church, just swinging by the court, I saw they were all playing. So I went out and I watched, and I got the feeling like they played regularly on Sundays around noon or so. That's when they would start through the spring into the fall, kind of season. So then I just started showing up. Now, again, I like basketball, so it was kind of easy for me to just go in, and I wanted to, play some basketball and connect with the guy, but at the same time with the purpose of hopefully there would be an opportunity to share, to witness, so I decided to, so it just started off that, me coming in, and, with anything, you just kind of sort of have to prove yourself, you can hang, not like you have to be the best player or anything like that, but I just came in and started playing, right? And so where I had a little bit more of the offensive mindedness coming out of, ministry school, with the defense, I kind of saw everyone was running and gunning basically, and so I was like, I had to carve out my niche, and my niche was the defender, the hustler kind of guy, grabbing rebounds, and get the points that you need to get, but realizing a lot of these other people want to have that shine and the glory of scoring the buckets. And plus, I mean, if you can't see or can't tell, these were like the thick double rims or whatnot. So you have to have a really good shot. So and so some of my shots were a little iffy on these courts with those rims. But anyway, so I started off just kind of being one of the guys, right? Just trying to get in, play, and run, but then let my life, I wasn't out here cussing, swearing, getting mad, getting upset, calling fouls when fouls weren't supposed to be called or when they were called, just letting things go and just trying to let the life of Christ just flow out of me, right? And be a witness and build relationships. And then over time, one of the things that I noticed, and we would be playing in the heat of the day, that hardly anyone would bring any water. Maybe sometimes every once in a while a person would bring a Gatorade or bring their own water, but really and so these cats would be they would be running with and playing multiple games without any type of, aqua or anything. So I just thought, hey, a simple thing that I can do is I could bring water. I would, so before church I would I would fill up with water. I can't remember. It changed at times. I think because initially I started off buying ice, then filling up water at the church or different things like that. But yeah, so that became a thing, bought a cooler, would buy the cups and just put that water in. I mean, outside of buying the ice, it was relatively inexpensive to do, but the guys really appreciated it. And so that was just one thing, because they're like, why would someone kind of just go out of their way to do that. And then on occasions I would also like go ahead and pick up a bunch of Gatorades or Powerades and have them for people, and have that all there for them. So that just became sort of my thing. That was like my niche, was sort of like, hey, this is sort of like, he's a cool dude. He's the water guy, and I never went out of my way to say, hey, I'm doing this for Jesus kind of type of thing, and I was hoping that, my own life. Now, obviously, when I would drive down here, I was still wearing the dress pants, the nice dress shirt with a tie, just coming back from church, and obviously I stripped down into my hoop clothes. But then, maybe that was a key for them, and then other things where people, just connected the dots. And I still remember one of the greatest, funniest moments was, I can't remember the exact thing. I can't remember if I picked somebody up or brought someone over, or they just happened when I pulled up, came over and saw me. Because sometimes when I didn't show up right away, they were like, "Oh, where's the water at?" Right? But I was listening to, I don't know, it was Times Square church music, worship music or something like that. And one of the guys was like, "Oh, you listen to them spirituals, right?" And I just liked how he put it, them spirituals, right? And so then even from there, some of the guys started calling me the preacher man, even though I had never really went out and said anything hey, I'm about, this is what I'm about, things like that. I was just kind of befriending and things like that. But then I started becoming the preacher man, right? And so that was pretty cool. And I enjoyed that time frame. I can't remember, I made a lot of cool friends there. Obviously, not any friendships, I guess, where it was where I started to hang out actively beyond the courts with them. But there was a camaraderie there, and there was friendships there, and it was sort of this weird kind of family, sort of vibe, because you always would kind of see always the same guys, right? And from time to time you get the oddball people come in and kind of go and things like that, but it was kind of cool, and it was a mixed crowd. You had people who were a little bit rougher, and then you had people who were not so rough, or just dudes, right, wanting to play ball. A lot of, you had a few high school cats, I think, would come, and then most of it was kind of 20 to 30 year old, middle-aged working class kind of people, so, but it was cool, and there was some skill to on the courts at times, and so, and obviously it was always the thing about just trying to stay on the court, so you you didn't have to wait out or have the dilemma of trying to who's got next, can I run with you, that whole thing, but it was cool. I was really blessed to be a part of that, right? To, if anything, where I sought to be a blessing to these guys and to minister to them, and to what impact, my presence had on them, I don't know to the fullest. All I know is I do feel by their own admission and just talking, I earned a lot of people's respect, and they had my respect, because I was kind of as far as culturally wise, I wasn't I didn't necessarily fit in outside of, playing hoops, but what they were into, or their normal day-to-day lives, I was kind of living sort of something that was countercultural to that, even obviously my faith and things like that. But but I was blessed to actually get to know these guys that had this time frame in my life, to have this experience. I've always been I feel since my time at ministry school, have had more of a heart that's towards communal, right? Being a part of something, right? Something more than your own self, right? And so this gave me that, even for that time frame. And so it was a good time. And so now there was some other things I want to talk about. So it was kind of like interesting thing too about the dynamic that went on here is not only here in town you had to know when people hooped. Now people hooped at other courts, but I kind of mainly stayed with these guys. But there was sort of like these cliques, kind of 2 or 3 cliques that operated and kind of came down here on Sundays to play. They sort of had their different like leaders who were kind of like the admins, the guys who kind of, you know, hey, they were the guys that kind of ran things, kept everybody coming. Now some of this was kind of automatic, but then when you would see like when the weather would change, and you have to go indoors, those were the guys, if you knew them, and that they would be the ones who would be like, if you were cool with them and they liked you, they would invite you to these gyms. Now, and that's not like, I'm not like just talking about like these exclusive gyms. Like, they would let you know when this church over here had an indoor gym to play at this time during the week, or this place has a hoop, so, and it was throughout all over town. And so there were different guys that knew those things, so it was kind of cool. And some of that still intermingled when you show up. You see the same guys, or the cross. Now some you would be like, oh, it's just this group or that group, because then obviously some of the things they wanted to do was they wanted to keep things low key, right? Because not so much to they just wanted to keep the numbers down sometimes, because they just wanted to run, right? And like sometimes they didn't want, because out here on certain days, man, there would be like 30 deep, and on average, I would say on average there'd be about 15 to 20, give or take. Usually now, like when you get into the gyms indoors and things like that, people wanted to run more, so they tried to kind of find that like healthy balance of not having too many people, but you didn't want to have too little people either, because then you wanted to be able to fill out teams. So anyways, so with that said, I want to take a break, and I'm going to go to another location that actually during they started some midweek games, and I think that this was Tuesdays, I believe. So now there was one group that started out, they tried to find something. This was outdoors, so this wasn't in the indoor season, the outdoor season, but they found some like courts where they thought, okay, this is getting too populated. We wanted to just kind of go hoop here and try to avoid the crowd. So they try to keep like gathered their core group of people, so let's go ahead and meet out there. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go and it's funny too, because it's a grip of a drive from here. It's like way out of the way, so that was kind of maybe part of the point. But when I get there and I'll talk about things there, I'll kind of talk about more some of those hoop stories. So, all right, let's hit the road. Now here are the courts I was alluding to. Now these courts are actually back by the camping area, Bug Creek State Park. Just kind of showing you the surrounding area. There's really not a lot of parking, but people would be parking all along this road and wherever they could to, come out and play. Now, usually this one would be the midweek or the Tuesday game. Now, for a time, it was also the Sunday game, because this place became the hot spot. All right, so here's just kind of a closer look at the courts. Like I said, we're out in the middle of nowhere. But these were at the time were very new, but I can see that time has not been favorable to them, as a lot of them are all bent up. But yeah. So, all right, so I'm just going to pick up some of my stories. Like I said, so this was, again, this place was 12, 13 minutes away from where Lagunda was. It's out in the middle of nowhere. It's in a state park. It's not convenient for anybody to get to. But the whole reason why people started coming out here was a small group kind of broke away from the Laguna crowd because it was so crowded. And someone found this, and I managed to hear about it and get roped into this group. And so this became a place where they were hooping on Sundays and Tuesdays. But then, again, word of mouth spread, or someone leaked it to the wrong person, and then all of a sudden this became the hot spot, and then no one went to Laguna anymore. Everybody came over here. So imagine like 30 people trying to play over here. There's like really not a lot of parking for it, but this became a hot spot in town for hooping for a while. So it's just, to me, it's always just kind of a funny thing, ironic thing, but it is what it is. But yeah, so some of the hooping also happened here. So this place kind of has a special place in my heart as far as playing basketball goes. And it's with like mainly a lot of the same guys, so it was just kind of, I just thought it was odd that everyone would choose to go way out of their way to play here, or why no one just kind of went back, or two like solid groups like a Laguna group and a Buck Creek group developed again. Now obviously when it was the weather was colder, and that people started meeting up in gyms, as I've discussed, and I'm not going to go to those locations, but I just thought it would be fun to kind of show this locale off to you guys as well. In addition, now just to pick up some of the other stories, thoughts as I was thinking, and I'm going to miss points along the way, but one of the things that I also did every once in a while, besides being the water guy, water Powerade guy, like I would have like cookouts, barbecues for the guys. And I did several down at Laguna. Now I had the help of my brother-in-law who helped cook, because I'm not a good cook, but we grilled up some burgers, some hot dogs, had chips, had soda, went out for those guys. And also at this location, I know a couple times I had I can't remember. It might be at least once. I know I did a cookout here, if not a couple times. I just can't remember. But then I also, now as people started to know who I was and or kind of identified, me as being a Christian or believer in God and things like that. So then I also started to like hand out at some of like the cookouts mainly, I would also have like Bibles or tracts, or even I was big into Christian hip hop artists during this time frame. I mean, I was actually big into Christian hip hop before I went to ministry school, but I was also big here, and so like the whole Cross Movement records and all of them, and they put out like a sampler that could be kind of used as a track, was awesome. So I had like give out things like that I thought might be relevant, right? That might since hip hop was the music of choice for most of the people I was playing with, and give them another opportunity, because I felt like those guys those artists were legit, like at their craft too, not only in the message that they were presenting. And I know their messages would speak to me and minister to me and strengthen and encourage me. So, I'd hope that it would do the same, for anybody, So, but yeah, so, I do things like that. And there were on a few occasions when we were in indoor gyms, I actually had an opportunity to give like maybe a testimony or a Bible study of sort before playing. So, so those were kind of the things. Now, again, what lasting impact that had on these individuals, I don't know. Perhaps seeds were sown. Maybe I was able to water a few seeds. Again, I don't have a lot of contact with a lot of those guys, or lost contact once I stopped playing basketball. And it was like I never saw any of them come to church or go to church with me or anything like that, outside of one young man who actually, this is a pretty cool story, and I wanted to share this because this was a pretty, impactful, he's an impactful person in my life, right? And and I trust that I had some impact. As far as one of the clear impacts that I had in doing this was that one of the guys that would come out and hoop, like he noticed some of these things that I was doing, right? Like he noticed, what I was doing and the things I was doing, and it made him curious or intrigued. And I think he was already a seeker, or had his heart set on trying to get to know God and things like that. And I still remember to this day, and we were cool and things like that and talked. And but I remember him going out of his way one time when we was actually in an indoor gym playing. He just kind of, I think I was waiting for a next game and he was or something, and he came over and sat next to me, and he mentioned hey man, I recognized basically I see you're have this relationship with God kind of type of thing. And he was like, I would like to know more about him, or I'd like to and so that sort of became the beginning of sort of this kind of mentor-mentee relationship, even though it wasn't kind of oh, I'm going to be your mentor and things like that. But I sort of, or in some ways, it was, I don't want to say big brother kind of, because I felt like we were more friends, right? Had a strong friend and bond, and he looked to me for spiritual guidance and things like that. But then we obviously had common ground, and as that relationship developed, he inspired me and he encouraged me, as he, he went on, to do some really cool things, ministry things, and went off to school, to ministry school, and did some ministry endeavors. And then he went off to, and, got him a good career in the IT field. I haven't spoken with him in a good minute. Just lost track. And that would happen over time as his life would get busy, but we would always still over time connect, and he would seek for advice for me, or I would just be a listening ear and try to give him the best spiritual advice or guidance I could give him based upon my knowledge. But I would also now that was probably a 10-year difference between him and I believe, and but I would relate to things to him, because I didn't always, and as you will hear these videos, didn't have it all together and things like that. So I feel initially there was this interest, and sort of he came to me, and I was able to start kind of he was hungry, so I was able to share and impart, right? Not only the good news and what it meant, but kind of guide him and give him direction as best as I could, and spiritual guidance and direction. But then over time, it became just sort of this very mutual friendship, right? Where I would share with him what was going on with me and things like that, or struggles or hardships and things like that. And again, there were times where, again, my life went this way, his life went that way, but we would always come back, and there would be seasons where we'd come back and be active in one another's lives, and building one another up. We'd go on a lot of walks and things like that and talk, and he'd come out and hang out at the crib, and so yeah, it was cool. And I'm very grateful for that friendship, that relationship. I kind of hate that. I feel myself, as someone who was sort of in that mentor relationship, I feel at times, there's only so much a person can do, but I feel I failed him at times, as far as because I was in my own mess, or I wasn't dealing with my mess. I couldn't necessarily, or what I felt was my own messes or issues, I couldn't be there, or wasn't there for him more, per se. And or so sometimes I felt short of, kind of being more helpful to him at different points and periods. And so again, I think we just kind of, not that we drifted apart as friends or anything like that. I think life just took us different ways, and But I'm grateful for that. You know, if I ever, you know, if he catches this, if you catch this, Seabow, you know, I hope all is well. Try to find me in some way. But you know, but also know if you catch this, you know, I still love you, I still think about you, and yeah, I hope all's going well. So anyway, so yeah, so so this is kind of we'll kind of wrap up sort of that time frame. So this was a special ministry that the Lord blessed me with, or allowed me to be a part of, sort of through this like 7 years or so, give or take, when I came back from ministry school, and before uprooting my life. And I had met a lot of cool, interesting people, you know, again, outside of, you know, the one individual, you know, most of it stayed kind of surface level, but, you know, I had love in my heart for them, I feel like, you know, and respect for them, and I feel like there was a camaraderie, and so there's a different kind of bond, you know, it's not like that familiar family bond, but I had this bond, and like if I saw these guys out on the streets or something now, I'd be like, oh, hey, what's up, man, you know, I might forget their names, you know, because like some of them always had like, you know, slick names, like, you know, not, which weren't their real names. And so sometimes I would get their real name mixed with their, like, you know, I don't know, their street name or whatever you would call, or what their nickname was. But yeah, it would be cool to see some of those guys, and just, you know, and that would be awesome to find if some of those guys themselves have come to the Lord and are serving the Lord or following Him. So that would be awesome. So, before I forget, one of the cool things that I appreciated was, this kind of shows you where I was as far as skill level, or appreciation as a hooper on the courts, was that, again, like I said, I focus mainly on the defensive rebound hustling. And I would normally, out of a lot of the guys, like when it was come to picking, wasn't going to be, you know, obviously, unless you were picking or putting together a team, right? You know, it wasn't obviously the first pick or the second, but I was always usually about like that third pick. But one of the coolest things I still remember to this day was the guy was like, he even like specified it, like, you know, give me Roy, because, you know, I know he's going to hustle, he's going to play D, he's going to get the boards, you know, so. And that that was a special moment for me, like even when he like made that specific, because it showed like it showed that someone saw the value of what I brought as far as a teammate or a player. I know it's not as serious as street hoops, but I don't know, this can't be counted as street hoop. What is it? You're playing in a state park, but you know, but he, you know, it was just the fact that, and he also like recognized sort of the skill or talent there to be had. I also always lighthearted, also liked it because it meant there's one less guy that's going to be trying to get the ball from me or try to shoot the ball. So I also felt fit in there. So anyway, so, you know, that's going to, with that, conclude that. I'm going to, you know, wrap up this this edition. Again, just wanted to, this is more of a, like, there's a special time in my life, a special thing that I was a part of, and I just wanted to kind of give it its own time or space or own video to kind of share some of the stories, or the you know, of sort of my hooping career, my street ball career, mixed with sort of a evangelical or evangelistic, like, you know, spin to it. So, all right, so be looking for another video focusing on this time frame at some point. So, and if you didn't catch the first video for this time frame, the whole like 2006 to 2013, you know, look for it on my page. I'm sure I'll link it somewhere. Look for my other videos in this playlist, Royster's Chronicles of Faith, where I just kind of talk about my life and events in my life, stories in my life, and how like Christ and my relationship with Christ affected them. So till the next one, you guys take care and God bless. All right.